Hello and welcome to Heather and Hops. My name is Katt and I'm a knitter based in Hertfordshire in the United Kingdom. This is my little space on the internet where I usually document my knitting journey from Project One. However, today we're going to be doing a little bit of knitting and talking about tea. This is something that we've kind of talked a bit about in the past, but it's been kind of brought to my attention that people like yourself might actually want to know a little bit more about tea and a little bit more about what Alex does, and so we are going to be here today. This is Alex.
Hey everyone.
And yeah, I am knitting on a project that I'm going to share with you next week, something that I'm quite excited about, to be honest, and it makes me feel a little bit weird as well, but I think as a pattern so far it's really dang cute. And the colour kind of accidentally is in Alex's wheelhouse today. It's like Alex's knitting and Alex's hat that he's wearing. Whoops. Alex, what are you knitting on?
I'm knitting on a hat that's taking me a little bit of a long time, but we've had a very, very busy 2 months really. It's been about 2 months I've been knitting on this, and I've been working Monday to Thursdays, basically 12-hour shifts, and then the weekends have pretty much been fully taken up with
either work or
either the desperately needed trips into nature or the couple of little trips I've to see my family who live 300 miles away. And then,
Hi Ashley.
Hi Ashley. And then a lot of work really, like work with Katt. We've been trying to cobble a few little projects together. Have you talked about what's in the garage?
No, we'll save it.
Is it a secret?
Secret.
Is it a secret?
Secret. It was a gift secret.
Okay. So yeah, it's just been super busy and I haven't really had the time to... I know it sounds like an excuse because you can always find the time, but
I
really haven't.
We kind of have a bit of a... Alex gets in, catch up a little bit, try and go for a walk, bedtime situation. So, and
I generally have about 2 hours awake at home in the week each day.
But anyway, I'm not cutting you off, but we're going to talk a bit about what you do for a living.
Okay, so I'll try not to make it sound like an advert for the company I work for as well. It's
just your experience.
It's just my experience. So for the last 9 years, I have... 2012 I started, didn't I? Yeah. I've worked for a small tea company in London, based in London. Very small tea company, but a really great tea company called Postcard Teas. And what we do is we import tea from all over the world, really. I think we work in about 8 or 9 countries. It fluctuates. And we source tea from small farms mainly, so mainly farms under kind of 15, 25 acres max. A lot of the time we can be sourcing tea from single trees and things like that, so it's kind of a niche tea company. And what we do is we have a little shop in London and we supply a handful of restaurants and cafes, few coffee shops all over Europe really, and we work with some really great chefs and things and sommeliers, and yeah, so tea. But day to day what I do is I blend tea, I pack tea, I scent tea, I make Earl Grey, things like that. I grind tea, make matcha, I roast our tea, make a kind of a roasted sort of our own version of a roasted tea. So all things tea really. Katt's ran away, or she's chasing Audrey around.
She's waiting at the door, like as if to let her in, and then just ran away.
Did I explain what I did? I was getting very distracted by the two cats then.
Sorry, I thought that was very clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Sorry, I She is a nightmare. I will put in a bit of footage of little Audrey, who is the in-house mascot cat / most of the reason that anyone comes to this little space on the internet. And maybe explain a little bit about what tea is.
What tea is? Yes. So tea is a small to large plant, a tree. It can be a tree. So it's a member of the camellia family. So you might have camellias in your garden. It's a species called Camellia sinensis. Also a version called Camellia sinensis assamica. But essentially it's a leafy green plant that grows mainly in temperate places in Asia. It originated in China, but now it's grown throughout the world to make the world's most popular drink after water, believe it or not. I've got a leaf here, which is a tea leaf which we grow in our garden. I might be able to focus.
I'll put the footage that I took.
Oh yeah, it's very much locked onto our faces right now, isn't it? But you can see it's just a green leaf. Like, looks like it's quite waxy almost. It's quite firm. And this is what you use to make tea, all kinds of tea. So whether it's a green tea, black tea, oolong tea, matcha, it all comes from the same plant. It all completely edible, completely delicious, but you really do have to prepare it. You really do have to use different processes on it to get the most out of it, really. And which there are many, many different processes. There are many things you can do to a tea leaf to turn it into tea. Did that explain what tea was?
Yeah, I think so. And then, so we have one here, which I did initially was a bit silly, and I thought it was the Rose Bay Willow. Is that right?
No, this is tea.
But it's actually tea. No, I did think it was, and then you told me. And it's actually tea that we picked last week.
Yep.
And
processed
last week. And we haven't had the opportunity to try it yet. So
no.
This is really exciting.
Super exciting.
You can explain how we processed it if you want. It's just a little brief.
So this tea, well, there's lots of different ways to process tea, but this tea we kind of first we picked it. We didn't do any withering, which is a process where you or maybe I think it would be easier if I explain the difference between a green tea and a black tea. So with a green tea, you pick the tea and you don't want it to oxidize. So you know when you cut an apple in half, it turns brown. Well, exactly the same thing with tea leaves. So if I was to sit here and just keep crushing this tea leaf and rolling it, it would eventually turn brown. So with a green tea, you don't want that to happen. So what you do is you heat it to stop that process from happening. Again, there's so many different ways of doing that. You can pan fire it, you can steam it, like it typically.
Bit like
yeah. So what was I saying?
Different process.
Yeah, different process. So basically, it's just oxidization level that determines whether it's a green tea or a black tea. So the tea that we've made here is somewhere in between, really. It's got a bit of oxidization. It's got but still got a lot of greenness in there. It's definitely not a black tea. It's more like a green tea, really. Don't know if you can maybe get a close up.
Yeah, I think I already have, but I'm gonna be second camera today while Alex.
So this tea was picked. We didn't do any withering. We just pan fired it quickly, and then did a lot of rolling, and then fired it again, and then did a lot of rolling. And then what we did was we wrapped it in like a cheesecloth while it still had some moisture in it. And did we do that? Yeah, we did do that with this tea. And kind of heated it that way. And what you get then is like something a little bit like how a yellow tea is made. Again, there's just loads of different types of tea. It's all just different kinds of processing, and
a bit like knitting, you can kind of do a lot with one amazing thing, and with slight variations. And
yeah, and a lot of the different processes of tea are kind of tied to different areas in the world. So if you then kind of copy that style of processing, there's a little bit of a kind of a, you can't have a Cornish pasty that doesn't come from Cornwall sort of thing.
yeah.
Will that translate to American watches, the Cornish pasty thing?
I should imagine so. A bit like the different...
Or champagne, you can't have champagne that's not grown in Champagne. There's a lot of that kind of thing that goes on in tea as well. So
Belgian chocolate.
yeah, which is crazy. So yeah, sorry if I'm a bit all over the place.
No, it's good.
Just channeling Katt's energy.
It's probably really true.
So yeah, this tea was one we made at our dear friend's tea farm up in Scotland, in Perthshire, which is a magical place, and very challenging place to grow a tea. You get a very short growing season. Tea's used to places like China and Japan and India, where you get long hot summers, and in Scotland you get a couple of days get a couple of breaks in the clouds and the rain. But no, it's beginning to thrive there. Actually, it's
amazing. And actually, even the oven that we used to put the tea in was solar powered, so there is still a little bit of sun there.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Okay.
Maybe we should have some.
Yeah, should we make some tea? Great. So I'm gonna make all of it. Oh, Japanese tea brewer here. Just going to use my fingers, not too much.
This is so exciting.
Let's move this because it's just going to get wet.
Yeah.
And we've got a nice coffee pouring jug of not quite boiling water, probably about 90 degrees here.
And is that how you brew all teas?
This is how you can brew all tea. Again, brewing's a thing of personal preference. Whether you want your tea to be strong or weak, or the temperature of... So the different things that affect tea brewing is quantity of tea, water temperature, length of time. So if you adjust any of those things, you're going to get a different tea in your cup. So if you, for example, put loads and loads of tea in there, you can brew it for a few seconds with boiling water and you'll get a strong tea. Or you could put a tiny bit of tea in there, use hot water for a long time and get a similar kind of effect. Or you could use colder water, which will take a lot longer to brew. Even you can brew tea in cold water, which gives you a cold brew tea. Yeah. This tea I've never brewed before, but I'm kind of guessing how long I want to leave it by looking at the colour. And also what you can do is smell it. It's starting to look good. And then this is a funny little thing that we use, often known as a sharing jug or a fairness jug. And it's just a good way
to avoid the clicking in the videos.
Oh, it's going to be loud.
Yeah. So it saves me a bit of editing. Maybe we just have it on this.
Okay.
But I'll wash this. Yeah.
I am definitely going to drip water all over this nice little bit of fabric that Katt's just put down there, but
that's fine. We don't mind that.
To save your ears from the aggressive clicking.
And to save my brain from hours of strange editing. How exciting. Do one more.
Wow.
What notes can you smell?
It's got a kind of green apricot aroma.
Oh, it
It
does.
smells kind of juicy.
It does smell juicy.
Yeah.
Definitely like an orange stoned fruit or a peach stoned fruit. And it does have that honeyness that Monica...
So, the farm where this tea's grown is completely organic, biodynamic, certified. It's 25 acres, but the growing space there is only really very small, and the rest's been dedicated to left from nature, really. A lot of natural Scottish trees have been replanted there, and it's kind of, it's grown. We've been going back every year for the last 5 years, and every year it gets a bit more wild and a bit more nature, and just
really quite wild.
fantastic place. And I believe that you can taste that in the tea. The tea that's grown there, the chamomile that's grown there, even some of the other herbal teas that are grown there, all have this kind of sweet honey kind of flavour. And when you pick up the dirt from the ground there, even that smells kind of sweet. It could be the romance of being there on holiday that you convince yourself it has more impact than it does, but it really is magic. So anyway, let's try it.
Do we cheers? Is that a tea thing?
It's not really, but let's cheers.
Gentle, but lovely.
It's gentle. Yeah, it's good. Hotter water next time.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, I needed hotter water.
It's because we talked a little bit too much. Whoops.
But yeah, it's good. It's
And
it's very
maybe-
delicate. It's very sweet. It does taste like a yellow tea. It's got a kind of slight sourness to it, like a
not like a harsh sourness,
No.
like a
slight sour fruit, like a not necessarily a lemon, like a
background of a sour cherry, like not even.
yeah, like a dried sour cherry, that sort of flavour.
Mm.
Be good.
Or a cranberry.
It
That's
was
lovely.
just a fun experiment. We got the pleasure of making it ourselves. Maybe you'll insert footage.
Yeah. What I would like to do is at the end of this, I'll put as our nature footage of the week. I will put in not all of our footage, because I think that'd be about an hour. We could do a feature length on Windy Hollow, but I will put in lots of footage of the space, and it really is beautiful, and I'm very excited to share it with you. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about it afterwards, but I think you've covered most of the best bits of Windy Hollow, in that it is a beautiful place and it is really wild in comparison to just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Even just 2 years ago, the last time we visited. I think this is a bit like us talking about superwash versus non-superwash, where it has its perks, but there's no right or wrong, but it's nice to share. Why do you want to encourage people to drink good tea? And I think you know what I mean by good tea.
I do know what you mean by that. It's like anything that you get that's grown. You want to be careful with your purchases, and you don't want to be ripped off. You want to get good value. You want to know where the product that you're consuming comes from. You want to know if it's had any pesticides, agrochemicals used in it, and then you can make an informed decision. One of the great things about the company I work for, one of the great things about the company I work for is that they were potentially the first tea company in the world to put the maker's name and the location of where the tea comes from on every single packet of tea. Something that we still do today. And I think that's so important. You would never be able to buy a bottle of wine without knowing where it came from. I mean, maybe a cheap supermarket wine. I don't even think so. I think they all have
some origin.
The origin, the grower. But with tea, you really struggle. If you go into a supermarket and buy a tea, you will struggle to find out where that tea come from. Even the loose teas, even a lot of shops that sell nice tea blends, sometimes it can be very difficult to find out where it was grown. When it was grown, is it 1 year old? Is it 3 or 4 years old? So yeah, I think that just that as a consumer, you want to know that it's exactly the same with knitting and yarn. It's the reason that me and Katt have been visiting different, you call it a fleece farm? Fibre farm?
It's just farms.
Farms. It's the reason we've been visiting different farms recently, and
love to visit
just to learn more. And yeah, we really want to go to a lot more now. Just to learn more and just to see how it's done, and then you can make a real conscious decision of if you want to use that product. With tea, there's a lot of tea that's grown with a lot of fertilizer and a lot of pesticides, and it's a real shame. Sometimes some teas, there's a kind of almost a place for different things like fertilizers. Sometimes it's needed. Sometimes you can use natural organic fertilizers, but pesticides I really don't believe in, so I would try and avoid that. But you can't avoid that unless you know where your tea comes from. So that, I think that's the main thing you should look for if you want to get a good tea, is make sure you know where it came from.
Yeah, and there's it's much like knitting or supermarket food. I don't know why tea doesn't often get, like, not that it should be thrown in there, but treated in the same sort of respect. It's everything, isn't it? It's how it interacts with the earth, how it interacts with people, how humans are treated as it's, how animals, pesticides are treated, and then how it affects your body too. Because I think it does have a.
You can often we've done tastings before where we've intentionally drank pesticide teas to try and learn the way it makes your tongue feel and the kind of flavour that you get from it. And you can kind of learn how to taste some of them, but obviously pesticides, there's a whole range of things that are used throughout the world, and you really have to be careful.
Super interesting. Yeah. Could sit here and ask you questions all day. I am going to quickly hit pause. It's amazing how I just turn into a cat sometimes.
It is, isn't it?
This might be a bit of a navigational issue, but we'll make it work, won't we?
So, in again with some bottled water this time. So, when you're getting a tea, obviously growing up in the UK, when you think of tea, so when I thought of tea for the first 20 years of my life, 23 or 4 years of my life, you think about a tea bag in a cup with some milk. And
that's a very British thing.
There's nothing wrong with that at all, and I like a builder's tea. A strong, that's it for an English person, that's a strong black milky tea. It's got a place in my nostalgia and growing up, and it's kind of it is true that it is what this country is built on.
It's a big cuddle in the morning. I don't have a tea bag, but I have big old cuddle in a cup.
Yeah. So the downside of tea bag is what I was just saying about knowing your tea and knowing where it comes from. When you brew tea in a tea bag, you don't have any interaction with the leaf. You don't have any relationship with what you're actually drinking because you can't really see it. It tends to be a process called CTC, which stands for crushed hair curl, which is like a mechanical process of chopping the leaves up really fine so they will infuse in a cup in a minute and give all of the tea they're going to give in that minute. Whereas if you brew tea that's been well made, with usually larger whole leaves or fuller parts of leaves, then you can see what you're drinking, you can start to learn the differences, you can brew it again and again. So there's not too much tea in here, there's probably only 3 grams, but we will be able to brew this over and over again all day long probably, depending on the tea. But yeah, sorry if I'm rambling. It's such a it's such a broad subject, tea, that you can't really talk about it in its entirety, and you probably couldn't do it in
a full length hour, 2 hours.
No, you couldn't. You really couldn't.
There are a lot of similarities to knitting, like in that respect. And if there's ever anything that comes up that would be particularly interesting, maybe
people can feel free to send questions about it if anyone ever wants to know anything about tea specifically. But for me to just sit here and describe,
I've done very general
tea
questions.
in its entirety is very difficult. I'm struggling a little bit.
But it's like I'm hoping that this will sort of be just like a little insight for some. Some might already know all of this, and then you've got the building blocks to ask deeper questions, and maybe we can talk more in detail about maybe a yellow tea, a green tea, and oolong. Like we can talk a bit more about them, and because I find it fascinating. We hosted a tea and coffee festival years and years ago, and but we'll talk a bit about that a bit later, I think. But yeah, I just think it's nice to just give this overview and highlight how special something that a lot of us maybe don't take for granted. I know that a lot of knitters have a more thoughtful mindset, perhaps. It's not maybe the right word, but to open that's just quite a nice thing to do. Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't like to use my phone, but best place to store questions. The first question actually I wrote down because it came from lovely Amanda. Hi Amanda, and thank you for just being you. What is your favourite tea, Alex?
Oh, that's one of those questions when you work in a tea shop that becomes kind of almost like a trope. It's a very often asked question, and I think my answer is always the same. It really depends on my mood. It depends on the weather. So my tea drinking tends to change throughout the year. So in the winter time, I love roasted teas, black teas, roasted oolong teas, Chinese roasted oolongs especially. And then in the summertime, I drink fresher, greener, either some first flush Darjeeling, which is like a very green, sort of fruity, aromatic, light Darjeeling, or start to drink the Japanese teas in the summer, so Stenchas, really green, rich. I find them to be like really refreshing, so that sort of thing. So yeah, difficult question, but maybe anything Monica makes at Windy Hollow, because I'm completely biased and just want to spend all my time there.
Yeah, if we could, we would absolutely live in that cabin forever. It's so beautiful, it really is. And secondly, I definitely know the answer to this one. Would you like to grow tea?
I would love to grow some tea. Yeah. If we could ever have a little space where we could just have some dirt in the ground. I mean, we've got a tiny little yard at the moment, and it's probably 10 foot by 15 foot if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And it's paved, it's tarmac floor. We've got a lot of pots, and we've got a lot of planters that we've cobbled together and made from beds and things, but nothing that we grow is actually in the ground, and I'm desperate to.
It's a bit like if the Weasleys had to live in a town.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It is. I'm desperate to put some trees in the ground.
We do have a few. We've got an oak in the ground, but in a pot, but we do have a few bits of tea.
Yeah, we've got an oak tree which was planted by a jay or a squirrel. Must have been because we never planted it in there, and it grew, and it's
getting there.
It's getting to be a few feet high now. So, yeah, we've got 3 tea plants which we will probably insert a little bit of footage of.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to ask these in order of receiving, so they might dart all over the shop. This one is probably more for me, but Melanie asked, how do you deal with loss of knitting mojo? You can. Yeah.
Is that a question for you or for me?
We can both.
I'm very time poor. I have the desire, but we don't have the time. I love to knit when I'm watching a film or a TV show, and I don't think we've watched a film or a TV show in weeks, have we? No, we've watched a few YouTube videos when we've been falling asleep in bed, but I like to sit down with like a feature-length film and get a good few rounds in.
Yeah, I think for me, there's times where I'm knitting for almost deadline knitting, or I've got maybe an overwhelming amount of projects for me personally on the needles, and I find that breaking those down into bits really helps if I'm starting to feel a little bit like lacking energy, or casting on something that will absolutely spark joy. So be that something that if you're the person that gains from finishing something quick, maybe you knit a baby hat, knit something for a baby, a pair of shorty socks, or using a yarn that you just you sit there in bed and go, can you feel how good this is?
I actually feel that about this yarn.
Yeah. So
it's really good.
I think that really, for me, they're the ways that I would get over it. Even if your knitting mojo is maybe lost due to comfort, I know that some people really struggle with their hands, or maybe the tools aren't quite right, and maybe not necessarily investing in a whole set, but investing in a new needle to try, or asking. I mean, I try and offer up needle swaps and things where people can, try maybe a bamboo needle over a metal needle, maybe trying a longer needle over a shorter one, or vice versa. I think that's a really good way of also combating that, or some beautiful stitch markers and progress keepers that maybe show you how much you've actually achieved and look absolutely beautiful at the same time. Yeah. I'm going to start using actual names because I realise that, well, not actual names, the names that are written. There's a few people that I've obviously known, some that I don't, and it just makes more sense. But Jenny Wren asked, how can we encourage more men to knit? Give them more time?
It's a strange thing, isn't it, that it's become such a femininely viewed endeavour. It's just making clothing.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have any kind of male-female
gendered at all.
About it really. I don't know what the answer to that question is though, but I've sort of come at it through having nice materials, through sourcing nice yarns and having the desire to wear comfortable clothing. I don't know the answer.
I think it is like maybe showing different patterns, like and talking more openly about yarn. Like when I came to you with this hat, I was like, oh, I met Kathy, and Kathy sent this wool off and got it processed and chose the colour and the blend herself. Like, I don't know, oh, wow, beautiful yellow butterfly. Did you see it?
I didn't see it.
No. It was gorgeous. Just pollinating, hopefully, one of the bramble bushes, so we'll have lovely blackberries in August. Yeah, I just think...
Talking about the...
Talking is just...
The wool as well, I think is good. I mean, if you want to survive in a cold, wet place, you probably want to wear wool, really.
Yeah.
Like, if you're some sort of adventurer in deepest, darkest, wherever, Alaska or something, then wool's probably the thing to choose, even over synthetic fibres, isn't it?
I love the wool.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
No, I just think it's talking, and when you're talking to people about anything, maybe it's tea, maybe it's chocolate, maybe it's knitting, just finding a thing that they will connect with, because some people might just get excited about being able to use really bright colours, and in maybe standardised, gendered shops you wouldn't be able to get a cool neon hat.
Yeah, you can make whatever you want.
Yeah, like you can literally do what you want. I think that's, finding the thing that the person you're communicating with will connect with, or the group of people if you can, which is an art form in itself.
Yeah, I don't really know the answer to that question.
Making presents as asked, would love to know the story of your relationship and how you met. As did knitting traditions and...
Didn't we talk about this before?
I think we have. We have covered it.
So, does everyone remember the TV show Blind Date? Nothing to do with that. We were working we were working at the Olympics when it was in London in 2012. I was doing like stock for bars, these like small VIP bars. Katt was doing coffee. She was working from a 1960s VW camper van selling coffee. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I just got talking to her, and we started swapping cocktails for coffee, and
yeah, that's true. I had a really good setup in that place.
We realised we had very similar interests in music and things. They even had bands on a few weeks later at the same...
It was earlier, but...
Oh, was it? And we even went to the bands together and things.
It was really good.
To see the Mars Volta, if anyone knows that band. Very good.
Yeah, if you don't, you're in for a ride if you check them out, and they are wonderful. Very cool. Yeah, that's kind of it. And then I encouraged Alex to come and help at a tea, coffee and chocolate festival, and that's how you actually ended up.
That's how I got into tea, yeah.
I was really excited that I would get to work with the lovely tea, and ended up having to make coffee, and dragged Alex in, bless him, to learn a whole world of knowledge in sort of 24 hours, and the rest is kind of history.
Yeah.
So we'll skip forward, and Making Presents also asked, does Alex have any creative goals? You've done some knitting and some dyeing. Is there anything else, or is there anything you'd like to progress with?
I've been really working on natural dyeing, and I'm super interested in it. I keep finding more people who are doing it nicely that I want to learn a bit more from. I want to experiment with a few different things that I've got in mind, but again, it comes a little bit back to not having any earth to plant things in. We've got some dying plants that are just about ready to harvest out there, so that's a little fun little project that's coming up soon. So I'm going to work on. Are we just talking knitting projects or everything?
Other crafts.
I'm desperate to finish my Gansey, but to be continued on that. We'll show that the next one, I think.
Yeah. I would really love to learn to spin. That's something that I'd love to do. There is one on eBay at the moment. It's really cheap, but it goes in like 2 hours. But you're not particularly spinning inside of it. It's not really.
No, it's not. I like the idea of start to finish knitting. So shearing an animal, spinning the yarn, dyeing it, and then making the garment. That's something I'm super interested in. That's something that we kind of might be.
I would love to do that.
Have going on soon.
Yeah.
Creative. I'm doing a lot of distilling and brewing at the moment too, which is exciting. Working on something special with that too. Yeah. All creative stuff.
Yeah, Alex is quite a talented
I wouldn't say that.
artist and drawer, and he's done a few tattoos and things too, but it's not something that you've had
I haven't
time
done it for years, really, yeah.
You designed your own bottle labels for your beers, which
Oh, that's
is cool.
fun, yeah.
But again, it's just time, isn't it?
More just gifts
funds.
for people.
Lovely Valkyrie Frieda's asked, how do you dry flowers for the best results? That's something that I don't actually actively know or consciously do. Every year I cut some of Alex's lovely hops off and just put them on an S-hook with a little bit of cotton. Just hang them up and let them dry, and they seem to last beautifully until they get knocked around. And the herbs that we grow, or lavender, I just tie in a bundle and hang upside down.
Upside down.
And that's kind of...
Not too much humidity.
Yeah.
Good.
The straw flowers I didn't actively hang upside down.
Lots of airflow you need through it. Straw flowers are different.
They're amazing.
They dry out perfectly. If you ever want some dried flowers, grow straw flowers. They'll stay perfect forever, really, don't they?
Yeah, when we got married, that's what we grew ahead of time, and that's what I had on my little headband, and you had on your little button, didn't you? And they're now in a little frame, and they're still looking quite amazing, actually. I do think I should maybe take them out of the direct sunlight, but just in case. But they do look pretty cool. Knitting Traditions asked best birthday memory. I don't know if that's for me or you. It'll be my birthday today for you.
Oh yeah, this video's going to go out on your birthday.
But if it's not...
Happy birthday!
But it's not yet. Time is a weird soup. Best birthday memory. That's hard.
My 30th was mine. Katt did a surprise party for me in a pub that I used to go to in Newcastle when I was growing up, and we turned up there and there was so many of my friends there who I hadn't seen for a long time.
That was a happy little
Sorry for the little break. The doorbell rang. Got some treats.
Oh.
Audrey's excited.
Oh.
So I just ordered some spirits. We were just talking about spirits too. From a lovely company called Highland Boundary. And they are a distillery, some very small but very awesome distillery in Scotland, that do botanical spirits. So let's have a little look. they do.
Ooh.
Birch and elderflower spirit and a larch and honeysuckle spirit. All wild Scottish plants that they make spirits with. And they sent a lovely little packet of Scottish wildflower seeds with the order.
Rewilding flowers.
Rewilding. Yeah, they're a bit of a rewilding project. A little bit like Monica at Windy Hollow. So yeah, that was the doorbell that distracted us amongst all the other distractions.
Such is life.
Such is life.
My favourite birthday memory might be the same. Might be my happy 30th last year, where I thought I was just going to have a lockdown doing nothing really. I didn't anticipate anything, and then we had sort of a garden with just 4 of my closest people.
Yeah.
It was really lovely. Yeah. One of my funniest is when my mum was so sweet. She offered me to go on the Orient Express just for like an afternoon tea, which is to me like, and at the time was like the fanciest thing you could do, and I would have looked very on brand, like walking along there with my pink curls in and stuff. But instead I dragged my best friend at the time for a 4-mile walk along the canal to a garden centre tea room. And that was my big extravagant birthday party for my 21st. I'm a sausage. Anyway. On opening the front door just now, a fly has got in and Audrey is being cat protection. What other hobbies do you share or do together?
We skate a little bit, don't we?
Yeah, roller scoot.
Go on nature walks. Well, I drag Katt around nature reserves.
Oh, I love it.
I
just don't dig in the mud quite as much as you do.
Turn over logs. Found a slowworm yesterday.
Pregnant one?
Yeah.
Mountain biking?
Yeah.
Ish.
Just got Katt into that.
Wood biking for Katt.
Music. We love going to shows when we can. Well, it's been a very long time now.
It has.
Just generally cooking. We love to cook.
Cooking to eat.
Katt likes roast potatoes.
I love roast potatoes. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the usual kind of things.
Yeah, we like to be creative. Like every now and then we'll just sit down and do a life drawing activity or I don't know, let's make this thing. In a dream world, I think we'd even be getting into like airfix and stuff again. But like maybe carving it out of wood, and I would love to do some wood carving and spinning and dragging Alex into spinning. Because I think you'd be quite good at like choosing fibres to blend. I think like
maybe
be quite good at, because I'm a bit more partial to the old rustic feel. I think you'd actually steer me into something that was a bit more refined and
maybe.
Yeah. Ooh, what? Epinetiologist. That's a brilliant name. What do you ever find yourself stressing about knitting, if ever?
I don't stress about it.
No, I if I'm stressed about it, that's the sign for me to put it down.
Try something
else. I try not to ever stress about it. The only time I ever get
grading
is when Alex will say it's when I've stopped myself for a while, and I have now not put that barrier on myself. But I stopped myself knitting things that I wanted to out of fear of being asked for a pattern, which is kind of ludicrous in a way. But there's the top that I really want to share, but it's the grading and wanting to do it right and being very new and all of that. So that's something that instead of letting pressure build up, I'm just working through slowly, and it happens when it happens. But otherwise, I really don't like knitting itself is never a stress. I just love to do it. And you just don't have enough time to do it.
Yeah.
We'll see how Alex reacts to the cabling on his Gansey.
Which I'm up to now.
It's very exciting. So yeah, maybe if you experience that, try something different. If you do experience that, maybe share your kind of thoughts on it, how you've negated it, or what brings you stress, and maybe others, like even myself, can try and feedback. Don't know. Dream project. Again, we've answered this, and for me it's shearing through to end product. That's the absolute dream. And then visiting the sheep again once more once they've got more wool, and just being able to sit next to one wearing one.
Yeah.
But do you have a dream project?
Just to finish my Gansey.
Build a camper van.
I'm a little bit scared that it's not going to fit me.
I really hope it does. I think a little bit of blocking might do the world of good. I missed this one. This is a tea one. I didn't. Laura Val 8 says, "Hi there. How do you know that a blend will be good? Just by the smell?"
Yeah, I don't think you can tell just by the smell. Certain teas will have not very much aroma with a dried leaf and taste really great in the cup, and then vice versa. You can have a tea that can smell fantastic, like fresh fruit when it's dried, but then when you brew it, it can be a bit lackluster or whatever. But when I'm blending tea, it's generally to serve a purpose. So I think a customer might want, or like a restaurant might want a blend, and they'll want something that's kind of malty, robust, strong. So I'll choose specific teas for that. Or when you're scenting tea, if you want to make like a blend like that, then getting the right scenting level is kind of like coming up with the recipe almost. So it's like if you were to make a cocktail or something like that, where you kind of
even a chili where you're adding the heat.
You add it in increments, and you try lots of different versions until you get it exactly how you want it. But in terms of buying a tea, I guess maybe the person's asking about, blends of tea which have like different fruits and things in. I'm not sure.
They often smell.
How they taste. Yeah.
Interesting.
When I'm buying a tea, I would tend to go for a tea where I know where it's from, and just go in with a curiosity. So if you're curious as to what a blend might taste like, and you don't think about it as being good or bad, just kind of have that curiosity, maybe that will go further. I don't know, does that make sense?
I don't know.
It's hard to judge just from smell though. You can see the leaves often if they're really crushed. Sometimes that can be a sign that the tea is of poorer quality, but also that can just be a sign of the tea makers made that decision to make it like that, to make it a bit stronger. So even that really doesn't tell you everything.
Drinking it
is really the
blend. As you blend it, you do try it.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm doing that all day long, every day. But yeah.
That's how Alex does such long days. Just caffeine.
Tasting tea. True.
Catherine, I want to say old, but I think it's Catherine A_AU1D. Says, who are some of your go-to designers for men's knitwear?
I don't know too many. The Gansey I'm knitting is by Kate Davies, and it looks to be a fantastic design.
Yeah, it looks well fitted. very good grading.
There's another designer with a name I probably can't pronounce.
Ailbiona?
Ailbiona.
I think that's how it's said. On her Instagram, she recently changed from LB Hand Knits. She's actually got different spellings or pronunciations, and I think because she's living, I might be wrong, but living in Ireland, it's written slightly differently. So Albion is one of the spellings, which is what I tend to refer as. But yeah.
Yeah, great work. Remember to link these things.
I do my best. I really do my best.
Yeah. And
Vanessa Pellisa? Again, I can't remember her name. She's got a few sort of hoodie patterns and things that are quite cool.
I really like the jumper that Katt designed for me.
Yeah. You're Raglan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's perfect, really. I will knit it again in a more colourful yarn once I'm done with my Gansey.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe Whistle Bear.
Definitely Whistle Bear. Big fan of Whistle Bear.
That's exciting.
I could knit it to match my new Whistle Bear socks that I purchased last week.
Oh yeah, like a khaki green.
Green, yeah.
We'll show them at some point soon. This is kind of Woolly Witchcraft asked, when did Alex show an interest in learning to knit? Apologies if this has been asked already.
I tried crocheting first.
Yeah.
I did a few hats. Probably 7 years ago, I would say.
Yeah.
And then knitting, I kind of started it not long after you, really.
No, you just don't have as much time for knitting.
Yeah, I'm happy to sit and try things like this.
Yeah.
But you haven't been knitting for very long, really.
It'll be 3 years in July, in 2 months?
Yeah. Just probably 2 years for me then.
Yeah, that's kind of... Yeah. I think that covers that. Bartlett & Co. says, when is your birthday? Mine is the 17th. Happy birthday. That's exciting.
Oh, it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Or it's last week when you watch this. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday for tomorrow and happy birthday belatedly to you. Mine is Wednesday, the 21st, so it's today for you, but in the past...
In the future.
In the future for me now, but probably in the past to most people watching. Whoa, time really is a weird soup. Lakeside Knitter asked, how's Alex's Gansey coming along?
I think we've just covered that, haven't we?
Yeah.
I kind of got to the complicated bit that I wouldn't be able to sit and watch films whilst knitting, and then just haven't had time to work on it, unfortunately. Really, I'm going to make an effort to, though.
Yeah, time is coming.
It's also been quite warm, so...
Hopefully this weekend I'll be warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the questions.
One last one, which I think is quite a hard question to answer. Rachel ZPOV, has asked, how can I get my partner interested in knitting with me? That's hard to me. It's just sharing.
Kind of need the desire to do it, don't they?
Yeah. So is that, again, it's maybe coming to that whole angle of connecting with someone through something they already know or love, or that might spark that interest.
Yeah.
Like,
I would ask, have they ever tried it at all? So maybe it seems quite complicated to someone that's never done it before. So maybe the idea is actually just get something on some needles that's been round a few times, so it's really easy. Just do simple stockinette and then just push it on them. Just force them to do a few stitches. Say, look at this. This is what you do. This is how easy it is.
in the rabbit hole, round the tree,
Yeah.
out comes Punny of Popsy.
Yeah. Just be really aggressive and force them to do
No!
it.
Please don't. Please don't. No. Yeah.
I do think though that taking down the barrier of it looking really complex and complicated is the key. So just getting them to do a few stitches, get into that rhythm of, once they can just do that stitch over and over, then I think that unlocks all the doors really.
Yeah, and seeing the amazing designs that people have come up with too. If there's something that you might know that will spark joy for them to wear, maybe that goes for anyone. You know, if I saw this, which I must admit, I would love to reknit this. This is the Cherry by Knit Midori Cafe or Midori Hirose. I want to knit this again really badly because this one hasn't lasted as well, and it might be because I've worn it so much. The mohair on the collar has, but the mohair at the end. But this sparked so much joy for me that I wanted to knit it like a huge desirable amount. And I think the Gansey for you is that connecting to tradition almost, and that sparks that. So finding that thing, you know, it might be that actually historical making might be interesting to someone, but it might be that your own thing would be interesting. So yeah, I think that's all I can say without waffling too much on that. I think we did it.
We did it.
I think that's all of them.
Do you have like a little housekeeping section at the end, what you need to say? No,
I don't think so. I'm going to put the footage of Windy Hollow. I don't know that there's anything else I want or we need to add about Windy Hollow and our trip. It was magic. It was meant to rain the entire time and we got incredibly lucky. My hands don't hurt anymore. I think the audio cut out in last week's video when I was explaining that I was on some medication. I think I was reacting. It was an allergic reaction. It's not anything to do with knitting, but just to highlight, because it's quite interesting. Quite a few people did say that they were suffering from knitting, and
I get that.
I've spoken about it before, but a few things that I find is finding a way of knitting that feels good for you. Maybe trying English style, maybe trying continental, lever knitting, Portuguese if you're doing experiment with that maybe. Hydrate. It's very easy to sit here and knit for hours and not drink water, but 10 out of 10 recommend if you can. Stretching every 20 minutes or so, just some little wrist switches, finger switches. But actually while we're here, because I have someone to show you, this is something that I absolutely love, and Alex gets asked to do it, not as often as I'd like, but will you just show them how to do the little... Ooh. Yeah. So
flap your hands around like a salmon.
So if you put your... Just get someone around you to rub either side of your wrist and let your hand go limp. It really... Oh my goodness. I have no control over that. Fully let it go. But it just opens up everything and feels amazing. So there are a few little things. There are a few videos on YouTube about hand stretching. I think I have one. But please be careful of your hands. Love them, because they're theoretically the only pair that you might get.
Yeah.
Well, you never know.
Prosthetics,
yeah, like I just try it. But yeah, so that's a sort of housekeeping public service announcement. I'm not sure, but I think it's quite important if you can. Yeah, I think that's everything. I have caught up a bit more on Exandria Unlimited, which I keep talking about, but I'm very excited by it, and I've got to say I'm really enjoying Hebria's energy. I think she's really fun. We have a friend that reminds me of her, which is really fun to see. They've got slightly different sense of humour, but it's brilliant. Maddie, she's like a really light breath of fresh air, and the characters are great. And Fern is basically probably me, I think. She's like a little fire demon, but also just wants to be at one with nature. Yeah, I hope this was a bit fun, a bit interesting. It was nice for me to sit down with Alex and share his energy a little bit. It's good to share, yeah, in a nice way, and talk about something slightly different, but also knitting. So yeah, I hope whatever you're up to, you are having a nice week, maybe making something that brings you joy, maybe not making at all. I hope that maybe when you sit down and have a cup of tea, whether that's tea or a tisane of sorts, chamomile, something herbal, maybe something spirited, alcoholic.
Or coffee.
Or coffee. You sit down and maybe you think and ponder about what you're drinking and where it's from, and maybe even imagine our little faces smiling and waving back at you. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. Take care of yourself. Send love to your family, your loved ones.
Important.
It is important. Enjoy some good food. I always say this, but anyway, something went a bit awry. I do always say this, can't remember what it was, but the main point that I always like to make, that is a shared sentiment, I'm sure, is don't forget to love each other.
It's directly out of these. I have to open it up a little bit to see it all, don't you?
There's some really nice leaves down at the bottom.
It's so dense. It's so dense. All the life happening inside is so.
the appreciation of the leaf.
Yeah.
You can see how the steamy will.
It looks like a really London cocktail bar selling a really niche cocktail.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Well, if we keep lower, it will still develop, won't it? If we go higher, it'll.
Yeah, I think the lows.
Okay.
It's a bit flat, this
Yeah, the other one's better. There we go.
Cheers, Katt. Wow.
What temperature did they use?
95?
I want to drink that.
You can drink it now.
Maybe like a little honey.
Yeah, that's quite actually very pleasant.
Yeah.
baskets full, you know, each time. Big baskets full, and then they take it back and